5-minute recess that was a little bit longer. We just wanted to be sure that everyone could access our meeting. Um, we have adopted the agenda before us, and we were at item 3. And so, Dr. Thomas, I'm going to turn it back over to you and ask you to start over for us for your superintendent's
Okay.
report.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We have Dr. Watley, and she is here and prepared. Dr. Gant had requested that we have a reopening update for our return to school. And so as most of you know, the CDC has provided some updated guidance, and we are working as a district with our principals to give them a reopening playbook or opening playbook very similar to what they had when we returned back. But we do have just a brief update on where we are with our recommendations and next steps as a district team. And so I turn it over to Dr. Watley.
Can you speak a little bit louder? I know Mr. Davis was having some trouble hearing people as well. And Mr. Davis, can you hear Dr. Watley?
Can you hear me now, Mr. Davis? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Okay, can you hear now, Mr. Davis? I think that may be as loud as it's going to get. Okay.
Okay, we'll get started with our reopening plans. As you see here, we're going to talk about 3 high needs areas. One is the mask requirement. Second is continued mitigation efforts. And the third is the instructional environment for our students as well as our teachers and staff. Mask requirements. In an effort to remain cautious and continue monitoring COVID-19, CCSD will start the school year with the following guidelines. However, I would like to say we will continue to monitor and make changes as needed. Early learning through 6th grade, all students are required to wear a mask. Masks are optional only for staff who are fully vaccinated. 7th through 12th grade, unvaccinated individuals are expected to wear masks while indoors, and masks are required on the buses. We will continue our mitigation efforts, social distancing, focusing on hand hygiene, contact tracing, spacing students 3 feet away. Please, please stay home if you're sick. Promoting vaccination and COVID testing, which I will talk a little bit about at the end, and air purified systems, which are currently being installed in each school. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Gaskins, so he can talk about the instructional environment.
Thank you, Dr. Watley. So as Dr. Watley and Dr. Thomas mentioned, we are developing a playbook. We will be meeting with cabinet and executive staff for specifics of that playbook, and we'll be meeting with principals next Wednesday at our leadership retreat to have more details around the instructional environment with their feedback. However, some high-level information, we do believe that students benefit from in-person learning, and safely returning to in-person instruction is our priority. So all schools will return to 5 full days of in-person instruction. We will return back to our normal bell schedules. High school students will be provided in-person instruction, and we will offer asynchronous virtual courses to students. So our high school we will, as you know, we are developing our online school for our high school students, so that will expand. We will follow, as Dr. Watley mentioned, the recommendation that we maintain at least 3 feet of physical distance between students and classrooms, and students will not be required to wear masks when outdoors. So at recess, students will not have to wear masks.
As we continue to talk about these multiple vaccination and COVID testing opportunities, we are having this weekend, Athens Neighborhood Health Center will be having a back to school bash. Parents and people who are watching on this Saturday, July 17th, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Also, there will be free COVID-19 vaccines for ages 12 and up. This is one of the many opportunities that we will have as it relates to COVID vaccination, COVID vaccination as well as COVID-19 testing. Also, in the board update you'll see on Friday, I've written up a brief blurb and sent flyers for all board members so you can send out to your neighborhoods as well as your people. And lastly, Hillsman Health Center. Hillsman Health Center will be open to all CCSD students this coming year, all students. So that's really exciting. I'm excited about that. They are a phenomenal thought partner in this process for the last couple of weeks, been working really hard on making sure we front load a lot of events for our families and our communities. So stay tuned on that. And again, I would like to say this, CCSD will continue to prioritize the safety of students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watley. So this aligns very closely with what the CDC has recommended, and we said through sixth grade, because sixth grade students are still 11 and 12 years old. And we want to be sure that we are having mass expectations for any student group that is not old enough to receive the vaccine. And as Dr. Watley shared, there is a free vaccine clinic coming up now. And then we are working, if I'm correct, with Ms. Rourke to have possibly another vaccine option and COVID testing for families that Ms. Rourke will be working on. And so that's something that won't just stop with opening. We will continue to have those opportunities for students and families throughout. So, and I know that's something Mr. Davis, so hopefully he can hear me. We are working collaboratively, Mr. Davis, with our neighborhood and other groups. You hear me? You hear me?
Yes, I did.
All right, love it.
Thank you.
You are very welcome, sir. We're here to serve. I love to watch when the signers get me being with Mr. Davis. It's nothing like those conversations.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for those updates and Cabinet for those updates. Very appreciative. I know there is a lot of still some uncertainty, and just based on where we are.
And it can change.
Yes.
We want, we are watching those numbers daily. We all recognize that the Delta variant is real. Dr. Watley, Ms. Rourke, we're monitoring those numbers consistently. And so if there needs to be a change, and that's what I hope people would hear, that we may have to make another change, and we will do what we need to do, as Dr. Watley said, to ensure the safety of our students and our staff. So we are monitoring those changes. We're monitoring numbers. We feel that this current plan is appropriate for where we are now, but where we are now may not be where we continue to be, and we will make changes as necessary.
Also, one other thing, we are also looking at having education sessions on COVID-19 Delta. What does that mean for our parents, hosting that through Zoom? So we're working those details out now, and I will be sending those details out to you so that parents and families can participate. Dr. Gowdy at the Hillsman Health Center and I've been talking through having listening sessions, maybe like lunch bunches, just to kind of quell people's anxiety about coming back to school with their children. And I understand that. So as much information as we can front load and provide them with, we're going to do that.
What is that time frame for those?
My goal, thank you. My goal is to have all of this within 2 weeks, some firm dates to send out.
Awesome.
We're working on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on?
What's within 2 weeks? I missed that one.
Oh, okay. Mr. Davis, Dr. Watley is hoping to have some concrete dates within 2 weeks. Those are her plans right now, as far as like additional educational sessions that they can do for parents around COVID-19 and related topics. Okay. All right. Dr. Thomas, does that conclude your report and update?
Yes, ma'am. This is a call meeting. We will keep it moving.
Okay, wonderful. All right, we'll move forward to section 4, and these are our action items. 4.1 is the action to approve the July personnel. And actually, I'm sorry, let me just double check. Ms. Palmer, I know there was an addition. Did that change? That didn't change our items listed.
3 addendums. 1 report and 3 addendums. The last one, we were able to thankfully get filled and get to you all this afternoon.
Okay, give me a sec because it's not.
We sent
Okay, a report And 3 addendum, 3 addendum, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So do we,
Addendum documents.
could I move that we accept all 4 document recommendations?
Yes. So, I'm sorry, Dr. Blankenship, it can just, in case I get this wrong. So we had the original board report, and then since that time, we have continued with interviews in order to fill all of our leadership positions. But of course, that takes the process that you all received yesterday, going through LSGT, the final interviews, and then those candidates accepting those positions. So we sent 1, then we had an additional candidate that accepted, or 2, we sent those, and then the final candidate, we were able to get accepted, and we sent that last resume. We apologize, it was this afternoon, but we got that last leadership principalship filled.
Okay, wonderful. I haven't had any additional questions. Thank you, Ms. Davis, as well. I think earlier you asked if had there been any feedback from the board. Dr. Yeager, you were about to say something?
I was just going to make a motion.
Okay, the floor is open.
I move that we approve all 4 of these board, what do you call them, recommendations for hiring?
Okay. So Dr. Yeager made a motion to approve all of the documents in 4-1. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Davis made a second. Any questions or discussion?
I just have one, what is our, unfilled positions at this point? in terms
Dr.
of-
Blankenship, I'm sorry, asking.
Dr. Blankenship is going to come answer that, but if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw that in one of our board reports.
Unfilled position numbers.
23, I didn't know if it changed.
Oh, okay. Have there been any changes since the updates for unfilled
There
positions?
was 23 was last.
It was 23. That number, Mr. Davis, is constantly changing. I can make sure that I have an updated number for you, and I can actually send it out. I won't have it until Monday, but I can send it out in an email to you all if that's helpful.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Is that something other people are interested in?
We're having onboardings every Tuesday and Thursday, and we've had a good number in attendance. It's been pretty nonstop.
It's constant. We're
Yeah.
getting recommendations for hire submitted multiple times every day. So
I can wait until the next board meeting.
Okay. Well,
I can, other people may not.
okay.
I'll
we-
be happy to include it in the board report next
Yeah.
Friday.
Next Friday.
I think that'll,
That is good.
is everybody okay with that? Most
Yes.
people, I see heads nodding. Okay. All right. That'll be included at our board update. Any other questions? All right. All in favor? All in favor of accepting or approving the items that are listed in 4-1, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. And any abstaining?
I'm abstaining because my sister's on the list.
Okay, so we have 1 abstaining. All right, so that motion carries. We'll move forward to item 4.2. This is the action to approve the resolution of the Board of Education of Clark County School District consenting to the inclusion of certain educational ad valorem taxes in the computation of the tax allocation increment for TAD 1. All right. Are there any questions before I open the floor, or Mr. Pruitt, is there any? All right, the floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
All right, Dr. Yeager made a motion. Mr. Davis, is that a second?
Yes.
Okay, any follow-up questions?
I don't remember receiving the explanation for what this tag covers. And so I thought in the attorney's letter, you mentioned that the county had provided us information that would tell us
Right,
who's
so
going to be eligible.
So this is just an ministerial sort of thing. Back in May, the board approved the intergovernmental agreement for the TAD. The law says we also have to have a quote resolution. It's a much shorter thing. It incorporates the intergovernmental agreement. Frankly, it doesn't have any logical reason for it, but the law says you have to have both. So this is just patching up an oversight ministerially.
And we still don't know what projects are targeted for this TAD.
Still do not have projects. The intergovernmental agreement says, we're just doing TAD 1, the mall area TAD. And we have the provision in there that there's this oversight committee that the Board of Education has seats on, so money can't be spent without the approval of that committee. But no, there are no targeted projects in that mall area TAD yet.
So in that document, and I'm sorry if I've seen it, I don't remember, but there is a document is that the intergovernmental agreement that we're talking about that specifies that? I really
That's
would
right.
like to see a copy of that document.
I'll just email it to everybody right now.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Pruitt is going to send that information back out. Any follow-up questions before we take a vote? All right, all in favor of the action to approve the resolution, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Okay, Ms. Palmer, okay. And all opposed, if you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, are there any abstaining? Okay, so that motion carries. We will move forward with the action to approve the resolution. Okay, and this is something that a response that the Government Relations Committee has worked on, and Mr. Davis did send out to us. I did ask if you have any recommendations or corrections, if you would come with those ready so that we can make those changes. And so before I open the floor, I want to, is there any additional information that we need to add to this, take away, recommendations for Government Relations Committee? Ms.
Yes.
Davis?
So I did sit in on a seminar, a webinar that talked about critical race theory, that this is in response to, and I shared with you the links. I don't know if you were able to actually listen, but this is an idea and a concept that hasn't been adequately defined from my perspective and from many experts' perspective. It's an academic and a legal structure that's being applied fairly broadly. I feel uncomfortable that the board hasn't had a full discussion about our position on something like this before we write a resolution speaking to something that isn't absolutely defined. It's almost like the TAD. We're saying, yeah, we'll go with you down this road, but we don't really know what road we're going down. And I feel the same way. I don't know that we've had challenges from our teachers or from our community, our local community, especially in our schools, that are challenging how we have taught whatever our history in the past. And again, I don't know that there are any recommendations coming from an administration to change any of that. So I'm not sure why we would write or sign a resolution speaking to something that seems fairly undefined to me. Popular,
Okay.
but undefined.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis. Others?
Well, let me go ahead and address this. First off, is that the Government and Community Relations Committee will be meeting on Tuesday with our representative to the Georgia School Board, Georgia Board of Education, State Board of Education. They're divided up by congressional district, and so the one that represents District 10 will be in attendance. As this was being produced, he made it plain that he supported what was passed, but he also supports the actual wording that was stated here too. And so, to me, but he said that if we move forward on this, he would take that forward to the Georgia board. distribution. I think that, we need to engage. I don't think this is the beginning and end of the discussion. I think that the Georgia legislature is going to weigh in, and if and when they decide to take their concerns into actual law, then it will be the state school board that is in charge of taking law and translating it into policy. And I think that this is a train that's coming down the track. And I think that our teachers, particularly the ones who are, which I think most teachers are, but very conscientious, social studies teachers who want to do the right thing in terms of challenging students to creating a true sense of our history and the different facets of it and how it's impacted, different populations to current times. I think that they're on the track, and I would like to think that boards of education would be willing to stand up in advance and say, we need to clarify what we're talking about when we talk about, critical race theory is that's a label, and it's not part of the curriculum yet, but it's something that is being used as an excuse to politicize social studies. And being a social studies teacher, I would want some clarity from my board of education. And I think what the state is that we are looking at not some general statement like the Georgia State Board of Education did, where just declaring that this is not a racist state and this is not a racist country. We're not coming at it from that standpoint. What we're coming at it from the standpoint is, when we look at current day, what historians do, or folks who teach history try to do, is try to unravel the current situation, and take it back in time to say, okay, what could possibly explain, the things that we're observing today. And this is what the resolution attempts to state, is that we're looking at it from kind of a scientific, data-driven perspective. And that's what I think that this board would stand for, is because we're all about data, and we're all about, we want to make judgments based on data. We want to have hypotheses based on data. All we're doing with this resolution is telling our teachers, particularly our social studies teachers, that if you start from the point of view of data, of what is occurring today that is measurable, then we can begin to look back in history to see what would account for these discrepancies and how folks, different populations, are faring within the legal system, within the economic system, and all the different facets. So that's why I think this is a very good resolution to have, and hopefully, people have objections that they would have expressed, before now.
Mr. Davis, do you think it would be possible? I'm in agreement with Ms. Davis. I do think, and I think I shared this with you. I think it's a start. I also think we have teachers, we have teacher advisory boards, and I think these are some opportunities to also be able to, for the district to be able to involve them. I don't think it was the strongest resolution, but I think it can get there. And so would you and the committee be open to having this perhaps placed on the August work session so that we can be more intentional about it versus just sort of responsive, sort of immediately responding to what seems like a popular topic right now. Because I think when we make statements, I think it has to be, they can be simple or as elaborate as they can be, but we also have to understand what it is we're saying and what it is we are articulating that we agree with as a board, and as a district. And I didn't get the sense that it was there yet. And I don't know that we can figure that out necessarily in a board meeting, but I do think it's a good start. But I would suggest, if others are open to that, doing a little bit more work with this document, and then also working collaboratively with the district to see where they are. We don't know where professional developments are. We don't know which teachers are familiar and comfortable with critical race theory as a framework. There are some assumptions, and not just assumptions. There are some statements and foundations to critical race theory, and so I just think it warrants more thoughtful work together as a board if we are going to move forward and make a statement.
Dr. Gant, I was going to say also, we are working with Mr. Smalley, who is our social studies district level coach for social studies in the district. Mr. Gaskins and I already have a meeting set with him. And we were just kind of talking, and we teach the state standards, and the state standards have not changed, and we will continue. We are obligated to teach the state standards. And so this political conversation is just that. It does not impact the curriculum. It is about, and we've talked, critical race theory is that. It's a theory. It's a theoretical framework. It is not a lesson. It is not the curriculum that we're teaching. It is not the standards that we teach. So we are bound to teach the state standards, and that is what we're doing. We are meeting as a team, and Mr. Gaskins will work with our social studies content specialist to work with all of our social studies teachers to continue to do somewhat of what Mr. Davis said, which is to support them in doing their work of teaching standards. And so you see critical race theory used a lot, but generally it's used from a research perspective, not necessarily from a K-12 instructional perspective. So we are engaging in the work, kind of like you just said, and are supporting teachers, and we'll be meeting with him on how he can continue to support teachers in that work. So the only other, maybe I should be quiet. Go ahead, Dr. Gant.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure. I want us to, I am very sensitive to both sides of this issue, but I also recognize where our state is and where our governor is, and I recognize that this is a political hotbed. And I just want us to be cautious, as we are already as a county being watched closely. I just want us to be sure as we proceed with this that we do so in a way that does not bring additional attention to our district at a time when that may not be in our best interest.
Okay, Dr. Thomas, others?
So can I say that?
Sure.
So we have really extraordinary history teachers in this school district who are doing some extraordinary work. And so is it your feeling then, Dr. Thomas and Mr. Gaskins behind her, who's nodding? Appreciate that. Is it your feeling that, this statement made by our governor and some of the others, the school board, the state school board, is not going to impact that extraordinary abilities of our teachers? So the statement at the top of the resolution that says the governor said to take immediate steps to ensure that critical race theory and its dangerous ideology do not take root in our state standards or curriculum. So it's your feeling that there will be no action to change the standards or the curriculum that we need to stand up against? Okay. 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 Thank you.
Can I,
Well, and if I may add, I think, and curriculum is certainly not my area of expertise, but I think just from a general framework with critical race theory, um, I I don't know that it fits like with a particular. Um, they're sort of foundations, right? Looking at the role that racism has played, and I think arguably we can look across all courses and understand how to that and this is Lakeisha speaking should be a part of conversations because it's foreign public education, but I'm just, I definitely believe that we, should continue conversations with individuals that are doing the work and in the classroom, as Mr. Gaskins has said. And I think we just need to take a closer look if we're going to make this statement as a board, not to do it haphazardly, but to understand that these are the things that we these are the things that we stand by, and these are the things that we think are important, even if they never make it to curriculum. And I personally just felt like it needed more work and more conversation. Yes, Mr. Davis, 1 second. Mr. Gaskins is speaking, and then we'll come back to you, and then we can open the floor for a vote.
This is the perspective. They're actually teaching students how to research, how to question what they've heard or what they've read, how to use multiple sources to come to their own perspective. So when we talk about standards, the standards for our secondary schools, especially in social studies, is really more about the critical thinking and the analysis of primary sources and not purely just teaching content.
And as we finish this, so I'm not against a resolution. I just kind of want to echo what Ms. Davis said and you said, Dr. Gant. I just want to be sure that as a collective group, everyone is in a place of common understanding about what's being said and what we're resolving to do, so that whatever the outcome of that is, it's one that everyone can feel comfortable with as board members having taken a stance on.
I'm totally lost, I'll be honest. I saw the video for it. I would definitely appreciate. Thank you, Ms. Davis. So that I feel certain that we don't sit back and do nothing. That's my gut feeling about this. So I would like to have a deeper discussion, and in the meantime, I would do a lot of reading, go to that webinar that Ms. Davis sent, and try to educate myself better, because I was thinking opposite of what you all are saying. I wish it had come out more before today, because I would have been able to have more thought about it. I thought everybody was like on board. So I thought I was thinking in the right direction. Not that it's wrong, but.
Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I want to say something because I'm not sure why. I mean, Mr. Gaskins speaking about curriculum, he's exactly right. This is not part of the curriculum at this point. This is this, and the term critical race theory was not even in the, and hopefully everyone read it closely and listened to the meeting of the State Board of Education. The term critical race theory was not used by anyone by the governor. And it does not have any impact on curriculum yet. And that's the point that I was trying to make, is that the state legislature, this is a snowball. And the state legislature, once they pass a law, and how they frame it and how they word it, I don't know, but it may be written outside the state. But how they word it, how they frame it, will become a law. And that law may very well impact, will be translated by the State Board of Education to policy. And then that policy will be translated into curriculum. And so Mr. Gaskins is exactly right. This has nothing to do with what Clark County School District is doing in 2021, 2022. This is not, and this does not, we don't need to engage the social studies teachers or Mr. Gaskins' teams and all this kind of thing. This is a political response to a political action that was started by the governor. And it's just like anything else. If you hear something that is, to just be very blank, if you hear someone use the N-word and you don't challenge it, where does that lead? Okay, so now in terms of, so I don't know why, and I do appreciate Dr. Thomas. The one thing that she said, and I can understand, is that she doesn't want to attract attention to Clark County School District, and that I can understand. This talk about curriculum doesn't make sense to me at all. Now, in terms of what we're having to do now, in terms of having a full discussion, this thing has been out there, and Dr. Maddox said it. This was a Google Doc, and people were invited to go in and to make word changes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Davis, because I don't think that was it was a Google Doc, but our work needs to be done in meetings. And so I definitely appreciate you sending it out early, giving people a chance to think about it. Maybe some people shared their ideas. I know that I did, but the work itself needs to be done in a public meeting.
Okay, I don't know how you write a document in this way. I thought that individual board members would come. For instance, you had two sections. I thought you were going to come with today's meeting with wordsmithing and saying, I think that these words should be replaced with these words, and then we would discuss it. That was my impression of what we were going to do today.
And I think we can still, so this is still on the agenda. We have people who have shared their opinions. And from my understanding, there are individuals who have either not shared an opinion or are okay with the document, may not have those suggestions. And so those were, just my thoughts. But it's still possible to vote on the document and vote on what we have. I just think it needs to be more conversation around it. But that's one of 9, or one of however many people are here tonight. So,
I thought you were going to come to today's meeting with word changes. You put them in the email, but I thought you were going to put them out here today, and so we could say, yeah, that makes sense, or it would be an amendment and that type of thing. I thought that's the process that we're going to go through. That's how we do policy, where we make, we say, well, we like this language, but let's amend it to say this. That's what I thought we were doing.
Sure.
So I'm really disappointed that we're just going to kick it down the road to another meeting, of which we all know that time is very limited. And so I'm just very disappointed that this, you know, it's like Dr. Maddox said. I mean, I thought, you know, based on the feedback of silence, I thought that people were generally in agreement with doing this, and that we're going to come today with specific word changes that they felt were stronger. That's what committee members did of the Government and Community Relations Committee. There were word changes that committee members made.
Okay.
So that's what I thought the process that we were going to do today. And as you said, be ready to do that. And you said that repeatedly in your emails to us.
I did, and I've shared my thoughts and opinions so far. I don't have any concrete changes that I think I could make tonight that would not warrant further discussion. And so that's sort of where I am with it, but I respect the will of the board. I understand you're disappointed. I do appreciate the work that the committee has done. And I think we can open the floor if there are not any additional comments or feedback.
Dr. Anderson.
I'd like to
Sorry,
go
Dr.
ahead
Anderson.
and suggest that we vote.
Okay. All right. So is that a motion,
It's
Dr.
a
Anderson?
motion, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, could you repeat the motion? I couldn't hear you.
I suggest that we vote to accept the resolution or reject the resolution.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Anderson. We have a second by Mr. Davis. Okay, any additional questions or concerns or further discussion? Okay, all in favor of adopting the current resolution, if you would show by raising hands and saying aye.
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 Okay, and all opposed, if you would say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that motion passes. We have a resolution before us. We'll move forward with item number 4.5, and this is our action to approve, is it Munis, the service agreement for fiscal year 22.
I move that we approve the service agreement for fiscal year 22 for Munis as our, accounting system, keeps up with all of the dollars.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Dr. Maddox. Any further questions? All right, all in favor, if you would show by raising your hands and saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and any abstaining? Didn't get a chance to see everyone. Okay, that motion passes. All right, we will, let's see, does that take us to item 4.5?
Yes.
Okay, the action to approve FY22 budget amendment. The floor is open.
So moved.
Okay,
I'd like to make an amendment, a friendly amendment to the motion or to the docket, to the budget amendment itself. And maybe it should come up in discussion, so
yeah,
let's do that.
okay, so we had a
Give
motion.
somebody seconds.
Okay, motion by Dr. Yeager, second by Dr. Anderson. Okay, all right. We're just going to open the floor.
It'll be for the special next.
Yeah.
Could you turn on your mic? Please,
I was just saying that we could discuss. I could rescind my
No, you're
second if it
Good.
warranted.
So we're ready for, my question is,
Mhm.
and I've shared this already with Mr. Schuneman. I'm just not comfortable seeing us. I'm okay with making the change. I need to see the trail. I need to see the CARES money going into the general fund And then, of course, it becoming a part of the fund balance when it was more money than was allocated, I guess, for the fiscal year 21 budget, right? But what I see are two statements, and the statement shows me what it looks like if we include the 6.5 million as a part of the fund balance and what it looks like when it doesn't. And that doesn't really reveal to me how we received that into that budget and then how it became a part of that balance. So, and maybe it's just another sheet of paper that you needed to include in here that would have made that more explicit for me. But it felt really strange to go into a budget that has already been approved and finished. I think we're done with fiscal year 21 budget. And now we're going to amend that budget to show an increase in fund balance because we transferred money in from CARES, and I don't see that reflected on that document that you gave me. So that's my hesitation here. Just looks like a number change to me.
So the way that the $6.5 million, it won't show up as money coming into the general fund. What it is we are moving expenditures out of the general fund to be paid for with another fund source.
So we're reducing the fiscal year 21 budget by 6.5 million.
22.
This is a FY22 amendment. So instead of shifting FY22 expenditures
Okay.
to CARES,
Uh-huh.
the goal of this is to say, in advance of FY22, we're going to shift $6.5 million of FY21 expenses over to CARES, so that we start the year out with that full $6.5 million in our fund balance instead of claiming it throughout the fiscal year in FY22. It's a lot easier administratively for us. We can do it in one journal entry and have it done and turn around and claim it from GDOE and have it within a month, as opposed to FY22 starts and we make that claim over several months. And then also you get into a more challenging scenario when people move jobs and you transfer, this is kind of getting into the weeds, but kind of following the trail of where their salary hits on the general ledger. If you move money out and then move their salaries, you have to keep track of where they are and keep amending that journal, whereas we're almost completely done in FY21. Once it's completely done, we can go ahead and move all those expenses out and tie up the year with a kind of a nice pretty bow and be done with it, and not have to worry about keeping up with salary history transfers.
So that one MBA accounting class I took, right? I'm still stuck on that balance sheet, right?
So overall, instead of us receiving money from GDOE throughout the year in FY22, this amendment says we're going to claim it all in FY21 and have it at the very beginning of the year.
When did FY21 budget end?
It's actually, it's 6/30, but the way accruals work, we can go ahead and book this as a reduction of expenditures in FY21 and claim that revenue to FY21. So it hits our fund balance and it's available for us going into FY22.
So it's like carryover from 21 into 22,
We carry over, correct?
and they stick it in your bank account and you get to claim it for next year, rather than trying to claim it monthly next year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
If I can, I think maybe Ms. Davis's question, at least this is what I'm wondering, do you also need a budget amendment for FY21 showing
Thank
that
you.
coming in? Is that your
That's
question?
all I'm trying to find out.
For FY21, I don't believe anything's necessary because we set the legal limit on, not to exceed expenditures of X dollars. This is actually reducing the amount that we're spending in FY21. So we don't need to amend the FY21 budget to reduce the overall approved expenditures, because we're not going up, we're actually going down in FY21.
So again, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I could have pulled that off in my department, but okay. So I wasn't smart enough to do that. So 21 is done, right? And so we've already spent the money. right? And so now we're discovering that we can accrue some of the money that we spent to a different account, essentially. And so that's all we're doing is we're taking money out of the general fund budget, putting it under the CARES funding, right? And then that then leaves us with a higher balance. Thank you. In the general fund. So that's where the 43. So back to his question, his point. Wouldn't that require an amendment to the 21 budget?
We're reducing the amount of expenditures in FY
That
21.
that's a change.
This is actually what will end up happening is we're amending the FY 22 budget because we're, instead of shifting $6.5 million of expenses in FY 22, the amendment is to FY 22 because we have to increase the general fund budget in FY 22 by $6.5 million.
Because you did that expenditure change.
Because we're claiming it in a prior period.
I have a question. I have a lot, and I know we don't have a lot of time. My first question is, before all of us leave, can we go ahead and schedule a time so that we can talk? Because I got way more questions than I have answers, and none of this makes sense, especially when at our last meeting, I asked specifically about the 6.5 million, and it was tied to the $10 million that was going to be used for teachers. So even if you tried to explain it now, it still wouldn't make sense because we have not had a follow-up conversation about the other questions that I've had. So this is going to be a no for me.
Okay. I understand how it got there. All I'm saying is, and again, my only experience here is with the IRS, right? And so I have to amend my return if I move that kind of money around, right? And so I'm just asking again, now that I understand what you're saying better, seems to me like the budget for 21 needs to be amended to show that decrease as well, or that money was moved or covered by CARES. I'm just looking for the audit trail.
We're looking at two different budgets. We're looking
Yeah.
at the general fund budget, we're
Right.
looking at the CARES budget.
Right.
If you recall that diagram, whenever I gave the budget presentation, the
Mhm.
period where you can claim money for the CARES, it starts way before FY 22 and it
Right.
extends after FY 22. So we can claim the expenses against that budget before or after our fiscal year, our general fund fiscal year. So what we're doing is this $6.5 million is already approved for us to spend down
Sure.
with CARES. What I'm recommending doing is just changing the timing, the planned timing of when that hits the general fund, when it benefits the general fund. And I'm suggesting, recommending that we do it earlier rather than later because it's beneficial to us to have that money up front. We get to gain the interest on that. And also administratively, the burden is much less if we do it in advance of the fiscal year than throughout the course of FY 22.
So that triggered another question then. So the 6 is it 2 or 5?
6.5.
6.5. The 6.5 has already been drawn down into Clark County school districts. So we have the money. And so we're able to continue to earn on that money.
Not yet. Federal funds are on a reimbursement basis. So they are sitting at GDOE. We don't have access to it until we show that we've spent the money and then claim it.
That makes it a lot clearer.
So if we claimed it in FY 22, we'd get it over the course of several months.
Absolutely.
As
But if we
opposed
claim it
to
in
this
21,
recommendation of
they'll
going
send us
ahead
a
and
check
claiming
now.
it and putting it in our bank
I
account.
got it. Gee whiz. I'm sorry it seems so dense on that, but that just, yeah, that didn't match my accounting principles. So I'm good.
All right, additional questions?
I was just going to remind us of the great award you were given by our auditors a month or two ago. So I appreciate your thinking about money in a way that most of us don't and watching out for us in a way that saves us money down the road. Thank you.
And let me just say, I applaud you. I think you're one of the most extraordinary people that I know. And the magic that you do with money is fantastic. A simple thing like, it's really not our money. We have to draw it down from the DOE would have brought extraordinary clarity to this conversation. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Other questions?
I'm good. I move that we accept the budget amendment as proposed.
I think we have a, do
Oh,
we have a
really?
motion by
Okay.
Dr.
I'm good.
Yeager and a second by Anderson? Okay,
Excellent.
all right. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting or approving the action to approve the FY22 budget amendment, if you would show by raising your hands and saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye, okay, and any abstaining? Okay, so that motion carries. We'll move forward to the action to approve the annual renewal of iReady for grades K through 12. I know that there was a document with a few questions in it that Dr. Thomas and Mr. Gaskins provided some answers to, and so I'll just open the floor if there's any clarity or clarifications that need to be made before I open the floor for a motion.
So I'm not sure I got the iReady explanation document. Did you ever find it? I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, I did. I had it. They
You found it?
Dr. Thomas resent it. Did you just resend it to me or the board?
Sorry, the entire board has it. Now, I
Oh,
don't know.
you just sent it. Okay, so I'm checking
Yes,
my
ma'am,
on that.
earlier
Okay.
this
I don't
evening.
think I saw it before tonight. So
So maybe, I thought everyone had it, but maybe it was just,
It's in the Google Drive.
It
okay.
is.
Because is that how everyone put questions in it before, right?
Yeah, I just couldn't find
No,
it, but it
I'm
was
with you.
there.
I
Yeah,
get
it
it.
was there. I just didn't know. I got lost. Can you see it, Dr. Yeager?
yeah, I
Okay.
see it, and I see the question or the answer about the high school not really receiving it well. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I hear about this all the time from the East Siders at Cedar.
Right. So we are required to give a universal screener to all students, including high school students. High school students did not take it seriously. We went back to the state to say that this is not good data for us, and
Exactly.
it's sort of wasting our teachers and our students' time at the high school level. They said because we are not implementing our MTSS framework at the high school level, we are not required to give a universal screener. We talked to our high school leaders. There are some high school teachers, specifically our support teachers, that have students that have support classes for math and reading that still want to give iReady because they use the data throughout the year to modify their lessons, and they think it's a good indicator of those students' progress. So we will only give it to those students that take the support classes and math and reading, but the majority of our high school students will not take iReady.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just want to ask a clarifying question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we done away with MAP that provides the same level, if not more data?
So MAP provides different data. So when we implemented iReady last year, we gave schools the option of continuing with MAP or moving over to iReady. And we asked principals to explain the differences between iReady and MAP with their staffs, and all of our schools picked iReady. Some of our schools wanted to do both. I did not encourage them to do both because that would be too much testing for students. But once they saw the capabilities and the components of iReady, all of our schools picked iReady. MAP provides an assessment of national standards, not state standards. So when we give an assessment in MAP, it tells the students academic level, but it doesn't give feedback into where they need to progress as it relates to the state standards. iReady assesses state standards and national standards. Plus, there's a personalized learning component to iReady and a teacher toolkit component to iReady that actually provides direct instruction, and it's not all on the computer.
Okay, so as a parent, that's not how MAP was explained. MAP helped me know where my child was so that the teacher could make the adjustments throughout the year to make sure that students weren't behind because they were using those scores.
So that is what MAP suggested they do, and I'm not suggesting that they don't do that.
Okay.
iReady provides better data to that, and then it also provides a personalized learning pathway for students. So when students are working in stations, instead of a student getting on like ABC Mouse or another online program, they're getting on a gamified system that is connected to their iReady score. So if we have 12 kids in a classroom, all 12 of those kids are on different levels, iReady creates their personalized pathway based on their academic levels. MAP does not have a component for that. We are still using MAP. MAP is an assessment that we use in our gifted identification. So we still have access to MAP for students, but it is a much smaller number of licenses than we've used in the past.
One more question. How do you motivate kids to do their best on a test like this? Because I know that's a problem in the high school, but even with younger kids, I would think click, 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 click through the thing. And how do you even motivate them to do well?
So actually our elementary schools are much better with the students. Actually our kindergarten, first and second grade students, their scores are always much higher than our older kids. I have given some feedback and have received feedback from schools that are really doing it well. We don't want to overuse it. It is
Okay.
a supplemental curriculum. It is a supplemental resource. Our primary resources are something else. In the pandemic, sometimes iReady was replacing instruction, and that is not what it is used for. It is used for stations. It is used for our universal screener. And then we have a really, they have a really good teacher toolkit. So teachers can pull students in small groups and actually do direct instruction lessons where the teacher is providing the instruction. It has to be a balance of all of those. Part of the iReady quote includes professional learning. We actually have professional learning facilitators that meet with every teacher that is implementing iReady, and they give tips on not implementing it correctly, not overusing it for its unintended use, and really looking at the data to make meaningful decisions related to instruction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it a state mandate for school-wide assessment to happen at the middle school level, and is thus iReady being used to meet that mandate?
Yes.
At the middle school level?
At the middle school level. So K-8, we're required to give a universal screener. And Dr. Anderson, you made me think of something, and now it has left me. Oh, it's also a dyslexia screener. In FY 23, we are required to give a dyslexia screener, and iReady already meets the component of the dyslexia screener for K-8.
And has the Teachers Advisory Board weighed in on how iReady is helping them as instructors, is helping with progression of their students, et cetera?
We have not consulted the advisory board the end of the year from this first usage, but when we did our RFP, we had members of that advisory board actually pick iReady as their number one choice of a selection of, I think it was maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we engaged teachers and leaders when we selected iReady. And we had 2 schools, Gaines and Alps Elementary, that actually used it a year before we adopted it as a district, based on the feedback of our teachers.
Do you believe that since the elementary students are performing better using iReady, that as this group progresses to middle school, that we will see that improvement?
I believe that for all of our resources, we have implemented a lot of new resources over time. The fidelity of usage, the appropriate professional learning is very important. The consistency from classroom to classroom, from grade to grade, school to school is important. I think we will see increases. The other thing that I think is really important is that not just iReady, but iReady provides this data, is that our focus on not just proficiency, but also progress is really important for teachers and parents to understand. And when we give an assessment and students don't do well because we're only looking at proficiency, they're not motivated. People don't value the data. He was red last year. He's red this year.
Yeah.
But when we have actual growth data that a parent can see, my student may not be on grade level, but he's grown a year and a half. I think that that is better data that parents and teachers can use. And then when students understand that I'm going to be celebrated for my growth, they actually take the iReady and other assessments more seriously.
I have a quick question with what you put in here and what you mentioned, Mr. Gaskins, about the universal screener and then the dyslexia, which I think is critical. But with the fidelity, I guess at what point do you see like the district saying, okay, we've gotten a sort of a return. This is really helping. I know it's not going to be like this year, like we're going to see, but I'm thinking through our strategic plan. I'm also thinking about the gaps that currently exist. And I know like right now we don't have our current data uploaded in the dashboard, but how do we really, at what point do we say, okay, are people going to use it with fidelity? Or are they not? And then if so, do we continue investing, this amount? Is it going to help us with those outcomes,
Part of something that is behind the scenes with not just iReady, but a lot of the systems that we purchase is that we want to do a usage report. I have someone on my team that not just iReady, because we spend a lot of money on a lot of different things.
Yes.
And the reason that we're talking about iReady is because of the price, but there are like 15 other things that are $70,000 or $50,000 that they add up. So we look at usage, and there are some items that we are not using this upcoming year because we didn't use them in previous years, or we used them and it wasn't an impact. And we met with every single principal to look at their master schedules to see how they are devoting their time for some of the things that we are buying. One of the things with iReady is that it encourages students to do 10 minutes a day on the math platform and 10 minutes a day on the ELA platform. If we don't create a master schedule that lends itself to that time, then we're not going to use it with fidelity. So we've really encouraged our principals to think differently or to front load their thinking around making their master schedules. So we do have space to implement it with fidelity. And then we're meeting with principals on next Wednesday to go over how we are monitoring their 90-day school improvement plans and how they're using iReady and other systems, our curriculum, to support students and close the achievement gap. And we'll probably talk more about that in August, what that system looks like. But part of that conversation is, how are you using all of our curriculum resources with fidelity? Because we believe that we have the right resources to support our kids.
Okay. Yeah, I think that information is very important, especially as we begin, hopefully this upcoming year, as Ms. Gallagher that shared earlier, looking really at our strategic, goals and direction and our outcomes. I think it's helpful for the board. This is one of 9, but, just to like know in general, what things are we using with, with fidelity, and how is it, how do you all anticipate it may, over time impact those outcomes that we're going to be looking at?
We had a very large ticket item. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to get the name wrong, that we were using at middle school for our middle school support class. It was not going well. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're no longer using it.
Okay. So yeah, those things are important, I think, but at least for me, but if not for everybody, that's okay. But, I think when we talk about outcomes, like how do we balance that? Because, I do think teachers are, they're the experts, and they also need support. We all do in our professional, disciplines, but like, how do we balance that when you have so many resources, and then at that point, are they using them? And, what do they feel like they need? And just as important, how are these things impacting student achievement? So.
And
Dr. Yeager, and then
thank
Ms.
you.
Gallagher.
I was just going to say, can we take this opportunity to encourage Dr. Thomas to reinstate the Teachers Advisory Board? And I don't know, I mean, they haven't been so active during the pandemic. Is there a way to encourage them to regroup and
They aren't grouped. They have new officers, and we're meeting with them on August the 5th.
We're meeting with the new teacher advisory board leadership on August 5th. And then we're meeting with the entire new membership on the Thursday after that. They're before the work session and before the board meeting. And we met with the teacher advisory board last year, I believe 6 times. So we reactivated them, or they reactivated
We met during the
themselves.
pandemic.
Yeah.
during
Is
the
there,
pandemic.
is there a mechanism for the Teachers Advisory Board to communicate with with us? I mean, I appreciate you're talking to them, yes, but in terms of communication with the board, I think there used to be more of an open channel, like we would have a report from them every month at every board meeting, and haven't seen those for a while.
I know we had it for parent. Did we have I forgotten?
Right.
Did
I know we
have
had it for
teacher?
PAB. I thought we would have,
I thought we
We
had
have
a
it for
teacher
tab. We
advisory
had it for
board. We
PAB.
had a tab report, I thought, when I first joined. Maybe not. Maybe I'm.
I don't
Maybe we
recall
did.
one
I-
under.
No, I thought you revived that group.
did,
but you
okay.
not.
Anyway, I would love to see a report of what they're worried about and what they're thinking about, if that's a possibility.
That
Just
can
to-
be a part of the committee reports like parent advisory board is.
Okay.
We can get there. I guess the president would just give us a report that could then be uploaded to you all, like Ms. Palmer uploads the other documents.
That would be awesome. I would really like that.
I don't want to misspeak, but I do think it might be helpful if we need some feedback. The board needs feedback, that we're able to tell them that in enough time for them to organize themselves and then give feedback. Because sometimes if we say, what are some of the things you are concerned about, that might be a laundry list of things. And not to say that laundry list is not important, but I think we have to have a balance of what are some things that are on your mind, and then these are some things that we're voting on, or some things that we're bringing that we want some feedback, and we can definitely present that to them to give them enough time, because we usually meet with them right after school, and their time is very, very limited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think they're very critical. And actually not just teacher advisory board, but we don't have really an employee. I don't think, Dr. Thomas, I don't think we have like a general employee or staff advisory board, but really think it's important to strengthen the voice of, our colleagues and staff. So I think it would be great if we could, have a report, and also just for other reasons where sometimes we need two-way communication for other future things as far as gathering stakeholder feedback. I just think it would be.
So I think what I was hearing more was like a summary, or like not minutes, but a summary from each meeting that captures the discussion monthly. That's kind of how PAB was done, I think, of just a report like we do with the other committees. So just a monthly report of the discussion items and outcomes or whatever that they could provide.
So I guess the root of this is, during our retreat, I was going to bring up part of our response to the Cognia issues and reports is that we need more communication coming to us from outside. And so in that column, I think, is the Teachers Advisory Board, and is what I would include. And so I'm not asking for a specific thing. I'm asking for just developing a mechanism for the teachers through their teacher advisory board to communicate with the board in a way that gives us feedback that we need for Cognia.
Yeah, well, and to maybe confuse us or clarify even more, it probably should have been an update, and I actually forgot, and I don't have a space on here, but the survey I think I sent that to the board, the survey that's going to go out, the survey questions. Did I see some people saying yes, no?
Which one?
You sent it.
I didn't see it.
Which survey?
The survey from GSBA? I think, Karina, you replied and said, are they gonna, as long as
Clarify
they,
what
yeah.
governance is. Okay, so on that.
But let me just say real
Okay.
quick, they will, that will be being sent out soon. We have an email that we've crafted, and I know Dr. Thomas, myself, and Dr. Maddox have taken a look at that. So that'll be on its way, because they will be sending that survey to a variety of different people in the district for us to gain stakeholder data. So sorry, that was
Okay,
sort of
I
related
found
to
that.
what you were just saying about teacher advisory and which was
But
related.
this is from the
somewhere.
public, right? This is a way of surveying the public.
It's stakeholders. So it's parents, it can be any stakeholders.
Okay.
Parents, it can be advisory boards, it can be LSUTs, it can be
Teachers?
it can be teachers, because it's about the board. It's about, if you
Okay.
go back and take a
Yeah,
look,
yeah,
it's
I'm
about
looking at it. Yeah, I'm looking at
it's
it.
about the
It
board.
will be on the district website with an explanation. I just need to get that updated, that approval of that. those
Yes, I know
changes.
you're.
And then we'll get
waiting
that on the
me to-
website, and it will also go out via email to parents and teachers for
So what-
them to complete the
Which
survey.
survey is currently out?
What's out now is if I'm thinking correctly, I lost Mr. Harris, but the survey about CARES funding and suggestions for how families would like to see CARES money used.
Okay, so I got a few phone calls about that one. I'm just gonna veer off for like 20 seconds. And the first question is, what do you think about the CARES budget? And then there's a video link, but ain't nobody sitting and watching no long video. But there's no link to an actual document that people can review so that they can check yes on the very first question.
And so maybe what I'm thinking is we can circle back around. I know, like, with your feedback about teacher advisory board and opening up a mechanism was related to iReady and talking about, like, what do teachers feel about that. So I know that that's sort of linked. But I want to be sure, Ms. Gallagher, too, that you get,
I read a question.
yes.
Okay, so Mr. Gaskins, you mentioned 5 different something. So were the people who were choosing already, were they already familiar with the other 5? Or were we already paying for and using the other 5? Or was it just a list and they just clicked on the one they were most familiar with?
Oh, no. So
Okay.
our RFP process is a very, I think, thorough process. These individuals were not familiar. I'm sorry, the teachers on the panel were not familiar with iReady. Of course, some district staff served and they were familiar because we were using it at 2 other elementary schools. So in our RFP, there was a list of components that we required, that we wanted for our assessment system. And then everyone on the RFP committee was trained to understand what those requirements were, and then they rated those requirements individually. And then they had, I think, a top 2 or 3, and then they looked at those 3 more closely, and then they made a recommendation for the one. And
So just on requirements, not on the actual program.
No, they investigated all of the programs. So they used the requirements as a rubric to assess each of the programs that responded to the RFP.
I'm gonna have to call you later. I got way more questions.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, additional comments?
Nope.
All right. I don't think we have a motion on the floor quite yet. We do have a motion on the floor for this?
I thought you did.
Oh. Okay, so the floor is
I
open
move
for,
that we approve the action to renew the iReady for grades K through 12.
okay.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Dr. Maddox. Any additional questions? All right, all in favor of approving that, the renewal for iReady, if you would, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have 1 opposed and I'm sorry, 2 opposed. Okay, and are there any abstaining? All right, so that motion passes. We are at adjournment. Really quick before we adjourn, I will be reaching out again about dates for rescheduling our retreat. So please be on the lookout. Ms. Palmer is going to do a survey for us. I'm just waiting to hear about one more clarification from GSBA, and they've given us a lot of dates, but I just had a follow-up question for them. So Oh, yes. And who will be here on the 12th? I know that for our regular board meeting. I know there was some um, concerns. I think that at least I know I won't be here, but I feel like there was one other person.
So I will not physically be here, and I've been told because I've already used my 2 remote options, I cannot show up at all. I cannot be here at all.
Okay.
So I will work very hard during the work session to make sure all the policy stuff is
Okay.
explained and clear and hopefully on some kind of consent agenda. So I do not have to present that
Okay.
again at the board meeting because I won't be able to be here.
Okay. All right. So Dr. Yeager won't be here. I won't be here. Dr. Thomas, Dr. Anderson won't be here. Gant, Anderson, Maddox won't be here.
Is
Are you
there
sure?
is there a possibility
Okay,
of
I'll be here for the
rescheduling
work
meeting?
session. I'll be here for the work session. Okay.
Can we
Okay, so we have a lot of work to do at the work session then to be sure
do we have a quorum for the people that are coming on the 12th?
Well,
let's
we'll
see.
have
Who do
5.
we have? Ms. Palmer, I don't have a list before me, but
So just 3 of us.
3. And I'm assuming that Ms. Hull and Dr. Dykeman will be here. If oh, she wasn't gonna be here. Okay.
So
Okay.
Dr. Gant won't be here, Dr. Yeager won't be here, Dr. Thomas won't be here.
And Dr.
Did I hear
Anderson.
Dr. Anderson would be here? Dr. Maddox, you gonna be here? I'll be here. All righty. Okay.
You sound very
Well, this must not
disappointed.
be our priority anymore, huh?
All right, so we know that we will have a lot of work to do for the August work session, but also what that means that Dr. Thomas did send out some announcements. We're expecting to have that work, that information beforehand, so that if we have any questions or need to sit down and meet with either Dr. Thomas or Dr. Yeager about policy, just being sure that we are doing that work before we get into work session so that we can then do more work in work session and get to a point where we're ready to have a regular
Is there
board
any
meeting
reason
quickly.
we didn't entertain moving the regular meeting 1 week
That's a
to
great
have all of you
question.
here?
That's a great question. Can we not move it?
Okay.
We can or cannot?
You can,
It's up to the board.
because I do not understand. I mean, that's just a lot of you not here, and honestly, we need to make progress, and so we can't do that if you're not here. So I would ask us to at least explore moving the work session. I'm sorry, the board meeting for 1 week to August 19th.
That makes sense to me.
You won't be okay. So we have one person that won't. We know at least one person won't be able to make 19th. Everybody else. Mr. Pruitt, do we have to? Because I know that like our meetings are set. I think in policy somewhere it mentions meetings. Do we have to suspend rules and vote some kind of way on this, or can we?
We just have to advertise it as well.
Because I know
I
we're at
think
adjournment and it's not on the agenda for tonight.
As far as adding this to the agenda. so
If
do
we
that
wanted
tonight.
to take, or if people want to take a vote on the 19th, if we don't and we want to keep it the same, that's one thing. What does the board prefer? But yes, that was my
That was your
question.
question. Yeah, that's right. We'll need a 2/3 vote of the people here to amend, to suspend the rules and add this to the agenda.
All right. So what do you all want to do?
I move that we amend the rules. and add
Suspend.
this to suspend the rules and add this to the agenda tonight.
I second.
All right. So Ms. Davis made a motion to suspend the rules so that we can add voting on August 19th to tonight. Dr. Anderson seconded that motion. Any discussion about that motion?
So we just need 4 of the 6, or we need 2/3 vote, you said. Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of adding this or suspending the rules and adding this to the agenda? If you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Was that an aye, Mr. Davis?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Any opposed? And are there any abstaining? Okay, so now we have another agenda item, August 19th. Are we?
I move that we move our August regular board meeting to the 19th.
I'd
To
like to hear
improve
from Dr.
attendance.
Thomas if this is a possibility or if we're just making her life miserable. You thought you were going to escape.
I should be able to be here. It's just college time for me and I'm getting people moved in.
Okay.
So if I can't, then Mr. Gaskins will
Okay.
step in. I have another move on the 18th, but I should be able to be here on the 19th. I have one on the 12th, but it's okay. I have mandatory orientation for parents on the 12th, so that's why I was missing that day. I have a move on the 18th and 19th, but I should be able to be back by board
Okay.
meeting. And if I can't, Mr. Gaskins could, but I
Yeah.
should be back by 6. It's
Okay.
no
And
problem.
I feel okay. I don't know how anybody else feels. I feel okay if you miss it, but it's just that when the rest of us are
Yes.
missing, I'm more concerned.
Yes.
Can I bring up something that I had forgotten when you asked me that?
Uh-oh.
Not that you legally can't do it, but one of the things that we needed to do on August 12th is approve the SPLOST referendum resolution. We have a timeline for that. I've been working with the elections director, and so she is counting on us voting on that on the 12th so that she has time to get it to the ballot builders and get it on the ballot.
Are we able to vote on the 5th? Is
Yes.
that allowed? Can we,
Suspend the
We can do
rules.
that.
can we
do a
have
call
one
meeting to
item
vote
for
on it.
action on the 5th and go ahead and take care of that
Yes.
for the ballot and then have everything else for the?
Yes. we
That's
can
why
just
we
do that
pay
as
you the
quick-
big bucks.
So, Mr. Pruitt, that will be enough time to get the or everything
Sure.
together that week
Oh, it's
before?
ready
for
to
her?
go.
Oh,
That's
okay,
right.
perfect.
Yeah.
Knock that out at the work session.
Okay.
Perfect. That's right. That's what we've been
So
usually
we'll go
done.
ahead and put that in now. And
Okay,
Like,
and
brilliant.
also just Lisa or Ms. Palmer corrected me or reminded me that our meetings are now open to the public because we are functioning normally. So the public is welcome to attend our meeting, of
correct.
course, with social distancing as we have the room set up. So, all right. So meeting on August 19th. We are not meeting on August 12th. We will meet for our regular work session the week before that, and I will be in touch about our retreat dates.
So we had the motion to add it to the agenda. Have we taken the vote?
I'm
yet?
sorry, maybe not. You second. Did you add the motion, Ms. Davis?
I'll make it.
Okay,
I move
We
that
haven't. Oh.
okay, go ahead.
Is it?
Make a motion.
I move that we have our regular board meeting on the 19th.
Okay. And Ms. Gallagher seconded that. So Ms. Palmer, Ms. Davis made a motion to have our meeting on the 19th. Ms. Gallagher seconded it. Any additional questions or discussion? All right, all in.
One question. Are we doing it because people can't make it on the 12th? I'm not hearing all the discussion. Is that the problem?
Yes, Mr. Davis. I'm sorry about that. Yes, 3 people we know for sure cannot be here on the 12th. Myself, Dr. Anderson, and Dr. Yeager, and Dr. Thomas won't be here either. Now, it's possible that Dr. Thomas won't be here on the 19th, but Mr. Gaskins will be here in her stead, but more board members will be here.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All in favor of August 19th, if you would, or meeting on August 19th, if you would show by raising your hands and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? And any abstaining? All right. So our meeting will be on August 19th. We're at adjournment. The floor is open.
I so move.
Okay. We have Ms. Davis and Ms. Gallagher made a second. I don't see any objections, so we are adjourned. I think I can't tell the time. So if someone
7:47.
7:47, we're adjourned. Have a good evening.